Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Caleb. He actually pointed out this YouTuber to me and how she got canceled and all this stuff by Fat Acceptance, and I've been seeing some of her videos. He's been sending them my way, so I wanted to go ahead and react to it. So let's go ahead and get into it. I don't have any prior context to Angelica whatsoever, so I'm coming in totally blind to everything. So let's go ahead and see. Let's get the tea. Ari Katarina. I love those cleaning videos, by the way. Okay, anyways, let's go ahead.
Hey everyone, it's Angelica, and I wanted to come on YouTube and talk about how I was canceled and went viral because of the fat acceptance community over on TikTok this summer. I can't say I post more frequently on TikTok because I really don't. I guess I just reside more on short form platforms and Instagram stories. Sorry, I'm not very consistent with YouTube, but I feel like I am a YouTube girly because I have a diarrhea mouth and I have a lot to say. Let's get into this fiasco, if you will. Brief lore before we get into what happened this summer. I joined, or I found out about the body positive community in like 2015, and I was kind of in.
Oh, I did just want to say too, I'm going to mostly let her talk, and then I'm going to react if I have things to say. But I really have no context whatsoever, so I need to know what's going on.
And out of that for a long time, and then during the lockdown I finally decided to download TikTok in like 2021, and I found the fat acceptance community and found a lot of comfort in that. And of course I started making the same cringy ass content as everyone else.
Damn. Oh my gosh. Like I can't wear clothes because I'm fat.
I wish I was swag. If only I was swag. Yo, I'm so swag right now. Oh my god. Ah!
But slowly but surely I started feeling like I wanted to be more than like my body, or like I wanted to focus on other things besides.
So just for context of anybody who maybe doesn't know me or whatever, I've never been a part of fat acceptance, but I did struggle extremely deeply with what I call toxic ritualistic behaviors, which is E followed by the letter D. I was on the side where you eat too much. Very, very severely so, very deeply so, over a decade. And so I've been pointing out a lot this year how the fat acceptance community and that whole psychological issue, there's so much overlap in the rhetoric that I think they're almost the same thing, just applied in a different way or a slightly different way. But most of the mindsets, the logic, all those things behind it, they come from that disorder. Whether or not somebody has it that is pushing fat acceptance, it is in my opinion that the roots of that logic comes from that disorder. As somebody who was never fat acceptance, but was deep in that, there's still so much overlap between me and the fat acceptance community. Like if you were to look at 20-year-old Alex, there's a lot of things that I had in common with fat acceptance, even though I was never a part of the movement whatsoever. Never have been.
Besides like how much I weigh, like what I fucking look like, because it's kind of like abnormal to build your whole personality around your weight. So I started branching out and kind of like only focusing on fashion, but still like kind of being a part of the community because I had like a lot of mutuals, and it's kind of hard to be plus size and not be affiliated with like the fat acceptance or body positive communities, because like God forbid you just like exist as a chubby woman. But in 2022 I reached my highest.
I think there's definitely a pressure to network and do that type of thing. I get what she's saying there.
Weight. In October I was 272 pounds, and I was not very happy with what I looked like, what I weighed. So I started, just kind of building healthier habits, and weight kind of continued to fall off over the next year and a half. And while all of it was happening, I started to be recommended anti-fat acceptance content on YouTube, specifically from Megan, Ann, and Sam at Every Size. And once I started watching their content, I started to realize that I shared more of the same opinions with them than I did with the people in the fat acceptance community. So I continued to distance myself, and whenever I did post on social media, it was usually like all about.
It's so good. So great. So great. I want to emphasize that I haven't posted any body positive or fat acceptance content in literally years. Yeah, okay.
Fashion, which fast forwards us into April of 2024. I decided to establish. I'm so sorry for like all of this information. Like I feel like I can't cut out. Like it just like adds to the story. At the end of April this year, I established a primary care position because your girl is headed towards 30, and I need to take care of myself. And I got weighed and I was 248. I was only 248, guys. That was like a huge deal for me because like I lost 25-ish pounds by myself, and I realized that I was in control of my weight and I could continue to lose more weight if I wanted to. The next month, or a couple days later basically, I decided to start taking weight loss more seriously. I started eating in a calorie deficit. I started establishing exercise routines, you know, still doing all the other healthy habits like drinking water, focusing more on protein, blah blah blah. Fast forward a couple more months. I forget exactly when it was. I guess I could look. I hate this new iPhone update. I feel like I can't fucking find anything. So in June 25th,
I do too, for the record.
I posted a what I eat in a day video as a plus size woman in a calorie deficit, where I talked about like, you know, my relationship with my body and shit and food and fat acceptance community. And I really felt like I had the confidence and the courage to post this because of like all of the anti-fat acceptance content I watched on YouTube from like Sam and Megan. Let's watch this super controversial video that will probably get your panties in a bunch. Sorry, a little parched. I remember going on my first diet when I was in kindergarten because my doctor told me I was overweight. So from childhood up until I would say my early 20s, I was always on some sort of diet and hated how I looked. At about 18 years old, I had my first outbreak of an autoimmune disorder, and I gained a lot of weight from being on steroids, which led me to finding the body positivity community online. During the lockdown, I started learning a lot about fat acceptance, and I fell into that community. I ballooned up to 270 pounds, thinking that my genetics were what's making me fat. It made me feel so helpless and like I was trapped in this body. And it once again made me feel like I had no control over my body and what it looked like. It made me feel resentful towards anyone that was in a smaller body. After being involved in the fat acceptance movements for a couple of years, I started getting recommended anti-fat acceptance videos on YouTube and started watching them. I had a come to Jesus moment. It made me realize that, yeah, I was fat because of what I was eating and that I wasn't moving. My genetics was not an excuse for being my size.
I really appreciate that so much because to me, it sounds, you know, it's reminiscent of coming to reality from that more, you know, toxic ritualistic mindset, kind of delusional side of things. You know, I talk a lot on the channel about the genetic argument. It's not real. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, it is something that really permeates through society, that is really reinforced and has been reinforced for decades. But you know, I'm somebody, I've lost 130 pounds since August of 2022. My genetics have not changed since August of 2022. It isn't real. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I think people try to talk about satiety signals and all these kinds of things. I think that toxic ritualistic behaviors are what are genetic. Those can be passed from especially close family members, especially a parent to child. And I have actually talked about that on the channel with my mom because she has had the same E followed by the letter D that I have had. And I think that that aspect is what is genetic. Some of those more neurotic tendencies or obsessive tendencies that can put somebody at risk for that once it is activated by trauma. That part is genetic, but the actual gaining and losing of the weight, that's not real. And as far as satiety, I talk a lot on the channel about hormone health, things like diabetes, PCOS, hypothyroidism especially. I put a huge spotlight on hypothyroidism because it makes you hungry. All of those disorders make you hungry and they need to be addressed. And people usually don't talk about them.
While that does seem kind of mean and a little harsh, it made me realize that I do have control over what I look like and how I feel about myself. Which is why at 27, I have decided to learn what a healthy lifestyle is and lose weight. For some reason right now, it feels different than any diet that I've been on. I'm not stressed out and I'm not judging myself. I'm just making small changes in hopes to live the best life that I can. And I hope that you know that you can do the same thing too.
So when I posted that, like, I looked at the views the next day and it literally had like 500. So I was like, okay, period. Like, no one gave a fuck about this video. That's like totally fine, you know. As someone that like makes content and posts shit on social media, like 80% of the time it's a flop, and you know, sometimes like 20%, you know, you get some views or whatever. So, you know, I didn't think anything of it. But then I continued to scroll on TikTok and I realized, we'll call her C. C made a video and I was like, oh, period. This is like about me, because she mentioned literally everything I said in my video. We're not gonna play C's video because I ended up like deleting it anyways, and it's really like not that interesting. It's like the same shit that everyone else is saying in the fat acceptance community, but because I'm not a little bitch, I decided to stitch her video. I think it's still up on my TikTok if you want to go see it, but I'll be 28 in March and I'm not going to be bullied on the internet. Like, people in the fat acceptance community think that like the internet is high school and they need to bully and degrade everyone. So of course I'm gonna stick up for myself. Actually, right after C posted her video, I ended up messaging Megan Ann and was like, oh my god, this mutual posted a video about me and I'm freaking out and I'm so scared and I think everyone hates me and I hope everything I did wasn't evil and mean. Little did I know, the storm just started. But Megan Ann was like super sweet and very nice and doing a lot of unpaid emotional labor for me, and I just appreciate her kindness. But before I did that, like, I did call my best friend and I was like stressing out and I did cry a little bit because I was like, the world hates me. So I posted that video, whatever. So C ends up messaging me and is like,
they often it's fat reinforcement. That's what I call it on this channel. So they're trying to reinforce these toxic ritualistic mindsets into other people, which is a common thing. It's projection within the disorder. People project onto other people all the time, and that's across all of them. So the most common form of that is that I've seen, it's within B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. People project that people have the kind where you're not eating enough all the time. And they do it in fat acceptance constantly, where it's like, if you are counting your calories, if you're having any limits whatsoever, then you have Anna or something, or Bull or something. You have something like that. When clearly a lot of these people within fat acceptance, they have the one where you're eating too much. And again, people don't understand that they all have overlapping things. I've heard one of you guys commented that what I thought about if it should be categorized as a spectrum, and I think it should be. I think that would really help provide clarity to it, because all of them have body image issues, all of them have restriction, and all of them have, we'll say, overindulgence. That's not the right word for it, but YouTube is very edgy about this type of stuff. So I'm going to just say, like, all of them have all three of those aspects, but in different amounts. And so I agree with the spectrum sentiment, because I've also seen a lot of people slide down that scale from one end to the other. In my opinion, though, if you're very severely on one end or the other, like I was very severely on the one where you have too much food, I could never see myself being on the other end. But people are not aware that within the one where you're eating too much, there are periods of not eating enough or unrealistic dieting. and these kinds of things. It's just as relevant. So a lot of these people within fat acceptance, they are thinking that they've left that disorder, but they never did. Or they think, oh, I started a diet and it gave me a disorder. You had one the whole time. And so I try to bring that to attention very often on this channel. So what they're doing is projecting onto you, and they are enforcing for you to stay in the mindsets. And it's very difficult to deal with.
Like, sends me this fucking novel, and I'm like, I really don't give a fuck. So C unfollows me, I unfollow her, then C deletes her video, which is cool, whatever. I don't give a fuck. She could have kept it up if she wanted to. But she didn't mention me by name in that video. But then I realized I'm getting a flood of hate comments on my first video that got like 500 views. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is like picking up in the algorithm or something, whatever. So I have another mutual who's not in the fat acceptance community messages me and was like, hey, I just want to let you know that someone made a video about you. And I was like, oh, well, if it's C, then like I already know. And she was like, no, it's this person named S. And I was like, S? I don't know who the fuck that is. And I gave her my number, and she ended up messaging me the video from S. And I'm like, oh, I remember you, S. I remember you, S. Let's watch this video from S.
Now on, I am just going to treat every fat creator who has freshly turned into a weight loss influencer as if they've died. Yesterday, I had to block a mutual who had posted a video that I at first thought was satire. Like, they were talking about their journey.
So yeah, I think it's really important to understand that within toxic ritualistic communities, there is an enforcement aspect of these behaviors and of these mindsets. And you're often, that's why I don't really agree with forming a community around this disorder, because it tends to get very toxic, like what she's doing. That's a reinforcement of it. Super toxic. Super, super, super toxic.
From body positivity.
Saying that if you're no longer taking part in that, those toxic ritualistic behaviors or mindsets or whatever, or you're at least not stating the rhetoric based in a disorder, that you have died. That's pretty extreme.
Into fat acceptance as like a delusion that they were holding, that they do in fact have full control over their body and their fatness. And
yes, that's called reality. So reality is hitting your disorder right now, and it's very, very scary. And I do think we have to understand that, and I try to let people know it is very scary, because it's your whole coping mechanism. And if it's severe, it is like your religion. I have often described no longer having that disorder as losing my religion. It is severe, which I think in a lot of people within fat acceptance, it is severe. It's very, very scary to think of not having that coping mechanism anymore. It's very threatening on a psychological level, and it causes a huge amount of anxiety. Does that mean that you should cater to it? Absolutely not. Live your life. Obviously, we're not here to uphold other people's delusions. That's not the way the world works. But that's, in my opinion, as somebody who has experienced this, what is going on with this person.
it's their responsibility to lose weight, and everyone else should lose weight too. So like, as far as I'm concerned, she's dead now. What anyone does with their body, it's when people start
It's not true, because if you didn't, then you wouldn't make this video. So you do very much care, but she'll probably say something like, something to the effect of, I care if you challenge my internal coping mechanism, but she might say it in a different way. But let me just translate that for you.
dictating to others, especially fat people, what they should be doing with their bodies, that I draw the line. And it's a reminder again about why, and like,
but the cognitive dissonance in that when she is kind of doing an enforcement stating that somebody is dead if they're no longer pushing this rhetoric, that is telling a fat person what to do with their body. But it doesn't matter, because even if you just say, I disagree with this, or I'm not taking a part of this anymore, they feel that sense of betrayal, and they feel that threat to their own coping mechanism. Because I didn't see her tell anybody what to do in that What I Eat in a Day video. If anything, it was pretty tame, honestly. If anything, it's almost too tame for me, for my taste. I would have appreciated more of people should lose weight. But it was more so Angelica just saying, I understand that I'm in control of my own weight. And that was too much, because it challenges that coping mechanism and that mindset. It challenges, like I said, in a severe state, that pseudo-religion of the disorder.
Unless it's fat liberation, it doesn't mean shit.
So guys, if you're seeing this video, it's true, I am dead. This is, I'm a ghost. I'm so rich that luckily I've been able to invest in great technology where I'm able to record myself as spirit and transform it so it looks like that I am a human being, and then I can still like go on the computer and edit things. So I am no longer here on this planet, according to the fat acceptance community. I'm with the Lord. Thank God, because it fucking sucks here. So rest in peace to me. If you've got this far, make sure you leave a gravestone emoji in the comments. See, like when all this was happening, like I was freaking out, like shaking, pissing, throwing up, shitting. But now I just think it's like literally hilarious. Like you can't make this shit up. Like reality is stranger than fiction. I feel like us and maybe a lot of people in the fat acceptance community, they have some sort of like hearing disorder where they can't hear correctly, or maybe it's like they can hear correctly but then their brain like warps what the word.
I call it the hypohaze. I have words for all these things on this channel. Hypohaze meaning hypothyroid haze. I talk a lot about how people who are really big often don't have as much empathy because they're caught in a flight or fight response due to physiological issues that have to do with being that size for that length of time. Also hormonal damage from the behaviors that I've been talking about a lot. And again, I don't say this from a place of judgment. I say it from a place of experience, which a lot of people don't understand when I talk about these things. It's stuff that I've been through and I've come out on the other side of. So I'm not saying that every single fat person has all these issues, but I am saying if you have a severe E followed by the letter D, there is going to be hormonal repercussions for that do affect your mental health on a physiological level, as well as the actual mental health issues of having the disorder in and of itself, which also makes you crazy. Because it's very delusional. It's a very delusional disorder. And I try to really make that clear. These people are delusional, legitimately, psychologically delusional due to trauma. It's sad, but there isn't much you can do other than call it out, because pussyfooting around it is not helpful either. And you certainly cannot let their issue control your life. That's something I will never encourage. And nobody should ever even consider that. So even if you're not actively fighting it in someone else, do not let them control you whatsoever.
Words are saying, because in my video I didn't say that all fat people need to lose weight. At the end of my video I left like a very encouraging message, and I said you could do this too, because guess what, all of us, especially bitches in America, hello, bitch in America here, could use or develop healthier habits. Americans usually sit on their ass all day because we drive in cars and then we go sit at our office desks all day. We also eat
It's true.
for processed foods. We drink delicious, sparkly, sugary beverages. Just kidding, this is sugar-free Red Bull. I'm sure that's still bad for me in some way. It's not like heart problems run in my family or anything. You know what I mean? Like, we're all not perfect human beings, and I know fat people aren't like eating 4 servings of fruits and vegetables every single day and having the right amount of protein and only drinking water, and you know what I mean? Like, we could all improve our lives, you know? God made us in his perfect image, but guess what? God must be a mentally ill, tattooed ADHD bitch, because there's nothing perfect about me.
I think too, like, it's always open for discussion. Like, toxic ritualistic mindsets dictate that we cannot even have a conversation about diet, or we cannot even disagree on it, or we cannot have nuance, or we can't acknowledge individual differences within it. That is a toxic ritualistic mindset. And so even if I don't necessarily agree that we always have to drink water, for example, that may be something I don't personally agree with, I'm not triggered by somebody saying that. And I'm not even saying that Angelica said that. I'm just saying if somebody did say that to me, I wouldn't be emotionally bothered by it. And I think that that's because we have to remember that conversations about diet and these kind of things, they're emotionally neutral. If they become polarized, that's not actually a normal thing. It's really weird. So I think, if you're deeply triggered by certain things or by somebody eating something, that is not a good place to be either. So we should always be able to have a discussion about certain things. I may personally get irritated by certain things. Like on this channel, I've had my spats about seed oils, for example. I've had my spats with my audience about soy, for example. I'm a hypothyroid girly pop. I am not having either one of those things. It is not good for me. I also don't drink alcohol. I do not smoke weed. There's plenty of limits that I have primarily for hypothyroidism, which is the primary force behind why it's difficult for me to lose weight, the biggest physiological issue that I have. And yeah, so I have to be careful what I do or what I intake because of that disease that can be treated, and it can be treated naturopathically. It can be treated with medication. There's many, many different paths for different people. I don't personally have an issue with production. It's more so utilization and too high of estrogen in my body, which opposes thyroid hormone. I know this is getting kind of boring and sciencey, but the point is I try to keep my estrogen consumption in food low, which alcohol is estrogenic, weed is estrogenic. I don't have it. Soy is estrogenic, right? So I don't even have grapes, for example. There's a lot of foods that are a little higher in estrogen that I avoid. You're not going to see me eating raisins either, but people typically don't have these like extreme blow up reactions, except for when it comes to like soy or seed oils or whatever, for whatever reason. I think especially soy has been politicized, but I don't give a fuck. Like, my hypothyroidism doesn't care about who you're voting for. I don't care. And I'm also not going to sit here and be like, my hypo girly and boilies, eat the soy. I'm going to say, do not eat the soy. Avoid it. Don't have it. But again, does that mean that nobody can have it? No. Does it mean that I'm offended if somebody eats it? No. Does it mean that if somebody was having a discussion about it, I wouldn't care, but I'm not going to have it? That's also what it means. It means it's not happening. It's not passing these lips. But I think being able to have these conversations and disagreements about diet or understanding different people's circumstances, like I have some people in my audience that have severe, or not necessarily severe, but they have insulin resistance issues. And so they're very strong against sugar. For example, I don't have that stance against sugar. I have sugar very often because I'm very active and I don't have the insulin resistance issues. So I also don't have bread, for example, so I need to have some kind of carb. But it's like we should all be able to have these differences, and if we're not in that toxic ritualistic mindset, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we're as healthy as we can be. What matters in terms of anti-FA is that we're losing the weight that we need to lose. And that's all that matters. Okay?
Me, even though I would like to think that. Sorry for all the religious talk. I am not a follower of Christ, my loves. I'm more of a spiritual person. I believe in the universe and whatever. Anyway, let's end this rant. And I just love how S also mentions that, like, it's just so funny how they're like, and she thinks she has control over her body and, like, what she does. It's like, yeah, my kind of
Reality. I know. It's hard. It's hard for some people. It is. And remember, it is a psychological disorder. Like, it is actually a mental health issue that these people have when they cannot accept those things. So always remember, it's not personally against you, even if it can get very nasty at times. It's not against you as a person. It's their own coping mechanism that they feel is under threat. So I feel for them, but I also I do judge them trying to spread it. That's something I can't understand even in the darkest depths of my disorder. I never wanted somebody else to do what I was doing. I always knew it was wrong. But they try to spread it, which is awful, and enforce it in others, which is awful. So, yeah, I do judge that.
like, my soul resides in this meat sack and I can choose what to put in to my orifices. That is such a jarring and mind-boggling concept. So of course I, like, posted my response to S because, again, your bitch is getting close to 30 and I'm not going to be bullied on the internet.
These are bullies!
And my video is like 6.5 minutes long, but I won't bore you of watching that because I feel like we've gone over the information that I talked about in this video like so many fucking times. But basically I was like, thank you for being so nice and talking about my journey in such a respectful way. In no way in my video was I, like, rude to fat people, or did I say anything that, like, every fat person should lose weight. I don't think that everyone should lose weight, you know. I am probably more liberated and believe in liberation more than the fat acceptance or fat liberation movement, because I don't care what you do with your body. I don't care what my neighbor does. I don't care what my dog does. I don't care. Like, I believe that we all
Oh my gosh. Well, sure. And that's definitely your stance. I take a different stance. I am, like I said, I am anti-fat acceptance. So I do take an active stance against these things. However, you don't have to do that whatsoever. But I will always support you losing the weight you need to lose. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I come from. I'm not neutral on this whatsoever. But other people have different opinions, and that's fine.
have the freedom to do whatever the fuck we want. I'm not gonna hold something to your head and tell you to lose weight because I don't give a fuck what you do.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily, I wouldn't hold a gun to your head, but I would say super morbidly obese people should lose weight. Pretty much every single one. Maybe not in every single circumstance, but you should be working towards fixing those circumstances so that you can lose the weight. For example, my mom is super morbidly obese. She's struggling with going to the gym because her shoulder is messed up. She got her shoulder surgery. So once her shoulder heals, she'll be able to go to the gym. If you have barriers, do something about those barriers and then move past it. But again, I am anti-fat acceptance. I am an anti-fat acceptance activist, which means that I am not neutral on this issue whatsoever.
I mean, I want everyone to have the best, happiest, fulfilling life that they can,
there.
but I don't have any control over that. Like, I don't stay up at night thinking about how many calories S took in, just tossing and turning, wondering.
I agree with that as well, because honestly, I gotta focus on myself, you know. I don't think about it in that sense. I think about it more in terms of, like, the logic behind it, the reason behind it, and the kind of messaging and activism and trying to change culture and change the conversations around these issues. That's what I'm concerned with. So it's not exactly neutral, but it's also not that micromanaging either whatsoever. So just be aware of that too. I agree with her here.
How much they weigh, I don't care. Like, if I cared about what every single fat person was doing, I would be exhausted, because that's like half the US population. No tea, no shade, I'm like still technically morbidly obese. So I post my response.
Yeah, and you have to focus on yourself the most, because it's difficult. You know, I do not micromanage other people. I just don't. I think there might be some kind of perception sometimes that people may have of me, that like people in my life, I micromanage what they do and stuff, but I really don't, because I just don't have the energy. I have to focus on what I'm doing. So I would always suggest that too. But again, see, that's more of like a rhetorical or logical statement that I will put out there. I would argue, if you are losing weight, especially from a super morbidly obese perspective, or even morbidly or whatever, if you're on the bigger side, you definitely have to focus on yourself. And remember that other people they need different kinds of macro profiles than you do. Your program may need to shift as you lose. There's all these different things that I talk about a lot. But yes, you have to focus on yourself. You do. Absolutely.
Response video, and I just see the views continue to grow and to grow and to grow. And I'm a Pisces, and I am just like way too sensitive for my own well-being, and I just don't look at the comments. But I go to work and I give my phone to my coworkers, and I was like, can you look at the comments? So I give my coworker Lexi my phone, and she starts reading the comments. She's like, oh, these are actually like very supportive of you. Like, a lot of people are in favor of like what you have to say. And then she starts reading them out to me, and I was like, oh wow, like I'm not going to burn in hell for eternity. People don't think I'm an evil human being. People agree that I should be able to do whatever I want and take care of my health. You know?
Yes, most people do. I think it's important to remember that fat acceptance is a very insular, small group. However, they do have a lot of influence, and they do need to be called out. And a lot of people that are especially vulnerable to fat acceptance rhetoric, they struggle with E followed by the letter D. And those people are more psychologically vulnerable, and they follow it like a religion. You know, they can really slip into it very deeply. And so it's very important to fight it. But in terms of like, are you going to have a massive social cost, or are you going to be quote unquote canceled, or, you know, whatever, by fat acceptance? Certainly not with a neutral stance. You're not going to, which to me, you're taking a much more neutral stance, and a very uncontroversial and extremely, even like I said, to my taste, a little bit too uncontroversial. You know, I'm like, get a little bit more bite in there for me, you know, but it's okay. Not everybody's going to do all that, and that's fine. Not everybody's as extra as I am. That's fine. But I would say that, you know, you certainly will not have an issue taking such a neutral stance as what you said. You know, I just think it's so incredibly neutral that you probably have to have an actual psychological issue to be upset at what you said, at least in that one TikTok. So
I was just so surprised by everyone's controversial words. And like, to be honest, I was like super in shock that everyone wasn't sending me like super vulgar hate comments. I mean, they still were, but there was like a lot more positive ones than negative ones, which really surprised me. And that chaos like kind of lasted for a couple days, and I would just like put down my phone and realize that like the world continued to spin, and all 9 billion people on planet Earth don't hate me. But at that moment, it just felt like the fat acceptance community's voices were like so loud that it made me feel like everyone hated me, and like what I was doing was like so awful and mean. But like in my heart, like I knew, and I still know,
they prey upon nicer people. I'm not nice, so they can't prey upon me. And they have tried. Like, I've actually, like back in the day I had an interaction with Fat Sophic Bro, but I just used it for my channel. I don't think they realized what they were messing with because I have a very feminine voice. I'm very gay, etc., etc. I think they assumed I could be bullied, but I can't, and I don't care at all, and I don't fuck around. So I used it and I totally owned the person. And I even called them out for having hypothyroidism. And they confirmed that they did. So, just saying. Takes one to know one, y'all.
That like I am a good human being and like what I'm doing wasn't evil or like destructive to society, even though like they made me feel like it was. And while things like started to kind of chill out, I realized like how many people unfollowed me or like blocked me that I thought were friends, especially like these two individuals that I really think of. Like they supported my small business like so many times. They've bought so many like pieces of jewelry from me. Speaking of, if you like my labradorite toggle necklace, this is for my business Rebirth Jewelry. Use code YouTube10 to save 10% off your first order. It's also available in silver. I would send them memes every single day on like Instagram Reels and TikTok, and just to see like them block me just because I wanted to lose weight and not be a part of the fat acceptance community, it was just like so odd and kind of like hard to grasp. But I guess it means that they probably weren't actually my friends, because if you just disagree on like one thing, it doesn't mean like you can't be friends with someone. Like I have a handful of friends and a lot of us have pretty like similar political views, but not completely 100%, and it's like I'm not friends with them. Like I still love them with like all my fucking heart, even though we like slightly believe in different things. But I guess it just shows that like people in this community and some friends are like situational and aren't completely genuine, which was really hard.
It's really important to understand that fat acceptance is not political. And it has been disguised as a political movement, I think, because of the overall polarization of this time and, you know, how prominent politics has been, especially over the last decade. They have really cemented themselves as a political movement, but it never has been a political movement. It has roots in FETISH. It has roots in a disorder, a mental health issue. You know, that's really what it is. It has nothing to do with politics. And that's very hard for a lot of people to grasp at first. But once you realize that, then you just kind of see that it doesn't really make sense. Like any of their political takes or the things that they say that have to do with politics, they don't make any sense. And it's kind of like, it's like looking at an AI generated image and all the words are wrong, you know, basically. So it is not political. So it is a psychological problem. If somebody cannot be your friend anymore because you believe that you can change the weight of your body based on what you eat, that person probably has a disorder. That's what I would say. A mental health issue, a delusion, a legitimate delusion, not like being cutesy and like internet insulty delusion, but actual delusion, like psychological, like having a break from reality type of delusion. I know what that's like. I've been delusional about my behaviors. I know what that is like. These people are actually delusional. So I know it's hard to like, it can be hard to understand that people like that, they actually have a deep psychological issue, but they do. So it is not political. I'm just going to say that one more time.
Hard for me to grasp because I don't make friends often. I was TikTok mutuals with Tess Halliday for like a year or so, and she ended up commenting on I think maybe my first video and said something along the lines of like, well, body positivity, fat acceptance is like, this is what it's about, blah blah blah. And she ended up unfollowing me, which I thought was like hilarious. And I will say that I do have empathy for S and C because I feel like
I'm not a perfect person and never will claim to be. I have made the same cringy and bullying content in the past. My past self is no different from them. I hold space for them and understand why they do the things that they do because I also have done them. We all get triggered and project onto others. I have acted out in rage because of jealousy. I have just grown and am now able to recognize that in myself. It's fair enough. Like I said, I will fight the rhetoric. I will fight it because it almost killed me. So I will fight it tooth and nail. I don't play with it. I'm very harsh because I've found that, when it comes to delusions and these kinds of things, sometimes we have to just snap out of it. And it's very strong. So a lot of times when I'm talking on this channel, which I do have a lot of you guys on here that have been, that have struggled with it or in recovery or whatever, understand it. The way that I talk about it, it's more harsh because it requires it, because they're very sticky beliefs and you can't give them any credence or any credit at all. You can't. You have to be very, very harsh with it because it's one of those things where if you have this disorder or you're struggling to get rid of it, if you give it an inch, it takes a mile. And that's something that I'm very aware of. And so I am a bit more harsh probably than most people in this area, but it's for that specific purpose. And yeah. So anyways, okay.
Like, even maybe 10 months ago, I think I unfollowed people because I realized that they started taking Ozempic. And maybe even 2 years ago, I would have been outraged and posted videos about people doing the same thing that I'm doing now, because I just remember so clearly being in the same mindset of them. And I still do believe in a lot of the things fat acceptance people talk about. I do believe that fat people should be treated equally, and there shouldn't be discrimination. But at the same time, the fat acceptance community always preaches about bodily autonomy and they don't care what other people do with their body. But then here they are being so
So like I said, I'm a lot less neutral. I think it's rotten to the core. I've stated that many times. So I don't have that view. We don't have this in common, and that's okay. I'm very against it, like I said. So for me, I'm just against it in general, completely. I think the absolute roots of it are bad. Everything about it is bad. It's toxic from the ground up. There has never been a lack of equality of fat people, for example. There's never been segregation. There's never been a law based on fatness. There's never been any of these things. So even believing that there is an inequality around the issue of weight is false, for example. So I'm not trying to be super harsh or anything. I'm just giving my perspective. I don't view that as a valid belief because there has never been a legal inequality of fatness. That doesn't exist.
Fucking outraged that I talked about wanting to lose weight, and then they continue to talk about how crazy Ozempic is when it is a life-changing drug. Obviously, I know people can abuse it. People that need to lose 5 pounds so they can fit into their 00 dress don't need Ozempic. I believe that people that are overweight or have PCOS or insulin resistance, or even just people that needed to lose weight should have access to it. It doesn't make someone an evil person for wanting to use.
I agree with that too. As long as somebody has all the education about it, they know what they're getting into, they know the risks, the benefits, etc. I agree. Absolutely.
Prescription drugs to help them with their health because that's what medication is for. My mom posted this quote on Facebook, and I put it in one of my dumps recently on Instagram, and it was just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. I found that quote a couple months after all this happened, and it's that's so true. Just because someone is pissed off or mad at what you did or outraged about something doesn't mean they're right. They can just be mad about something even though there is no ground in why they are upset. Since I started, and I guess I still do watch anti-fat acceptance. It is kind of like funny, and I was like eating it up. A couple people made a video about me. The first one is called The Cynical Dude. I think he posted it like a couple days after like all the drama happened. I didn't watch him before this, so like his followers like let me know that he posted it, and now I watch him a lot. Obese to Beast made a video about me. Megan Ann made a video about me, and then Michelle McDonald made like a Mean Girls of Fat Acceptance community video the other day, and she used like a little clip of my head was like at the bottom of the video, which I thought was funny, and it just like kind of confirms to me that I'm not a bad person or like not completely fucking insane. And
no, and let me just say on my end, you're totally fine. You know, I think there are certain things that I may disagree with, but again, this is your life. I'm really grateful that you spoke up about this from an activistic perspective, and, you know, from my perspective, I'm so glad that you spoke up about this. I'm so glad that you are taking a better step in your life in terms of your health, and you're making the decisions that will improve your life and get you, you know, you're taking better care of yourself. I'm glad that you're not being as jealous, or, you know, you're understanding these different emotional aspects about weight, and you're coming to a sense of reality. I think that's a beautiful thing. And that's honestly all that's required. You know, not everybody's going to be like me and try to like, you know, get the witch hat out and like start on the offense on this or start attacking. But I will, personally, I will, because I fully intend on doing my best to destroy these mindsets and these things. Again, I almost lost my life to this type of stuff, so it's very serious to me. But in terms of like normal people, someone like yourself, I think you're totally fine, and I think it's fine to be neutral. I think we all need to be what we need to be, you know, basically. But I'm really glad that you left, and I'm really happy that you talked about it. I think that that's so helpful.
Actually take responsibility for my weight and what I eat, because
Yes.
I do believe in bodily autonomy, and while I know there are complicated reasons why it is harder for people to lose weight, it still is possible for
Love that. I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
all of us to lose weight. And you know, I don't struggle with PCOS. I do have a handful of diagnoses, but I don't think any of them have made it any harder for me to lose weight besides my depression. That is pretty much under control now. Okay, my battery's about to die, so I just charged it for 10 minutes, so hopefully the lighting and situation isn't that off. I guess one thing that's like kind of embarrassing about being in the fat acceptance community is that like people remember all the things that you said that you posted online. One of my good friends got like one of the gastric sleeve surgeries at the beginning of the year, and she recently told me that she was scared to tell me because of like all the shit that I posted on social media in the past.
I will just say, as far as on my end, I don't have all of it on social media or whatever. There isn't really like a backlog of it. But what I will say is I have the memories. I have the memories. So I am haunted by it for sure. And there's a lot of stuff I've done in regards to my disorder that I'm not ever going to forget. And it's pretty awful. But, you know, it is what it is.
Kind of sucks, but I guess like, you know, your actions do have consequences, and I just want
Basically just saying you're not alone in that.
say that I do support everyone that gets any sort of like surgery to help with their weight loss or eating, or if they take any prescription medications, because weight loss and eating is very fucking complicated, and there's not like a one size fits all answer for everyone. Okay, this is a little bit shady, but I just have to share it because I'm a bitch. So I was scrolling on Instagram the other day, and a post from S came up, and I realized like I didn't unfollow them, and they posted like something because it was their birthday, and they were talking about how it was like the hardest year of their entire life. And I was just like, wow. I mean, obviously I want everyone to have like a good, happy life, but it just like kind of confirmed to me that like people that are like the loudest and the meanest on the internet are like actually kind of miserable and not doing well. And a lot of people that are like cyberbullies are actually pretty unhappy. In my opinion, most of the
True.
people that make fat acceptance content create the content to make themselves feel better about themselves in the situations that they're in, and like kind of convince themselves that they like themselves or that they love themselves and how they look. I mean, like, even
Again, I can't speak
from talking
for every single person within fat acceptance. All I can speak to is the disorder, and what people are doing that are within fat acceptance that have the disorder is they're using their body as a distraction. They're using their eating habits as a distraction. So what you'll typically see, like for example, somebody that I have observed, the feminist land whale. Whenever the feminist land whale is upset in her life, she would get on the offense on social media and start like attacking people a lot. This happened a lot. I watched this video of the Hidden Channel breaking down her content, and she even said, which it was such a good observation, by the way, the Hidden Channel, but she even said, like, it seems like when she's not happy in her life or when there's something going on, she'll kind of get on here and like start fighting with people. And then when she went to like a Harry Styles concert or something like that, she's happy, so she's not posting about fat acceptance. And it's like a cycle. And so what people have to understand is, in which I do, again, I'm not a professional or whatever, but I do believe that that person has the disorder, in my opinion. And what people are doing is it's a distraction mechanism, and it's a way to deal with anxiety. So anxiety can come from anything. It can come from emotions you have. It can come from financial issues. It can come from relationship problems, right? There's so many ways that anxiety can come in. And what somebody with the disorder will do is they will then start thinking about their body or their diet. And that's what happens. And so they're using the content, the social media, all these things to further distract themselves. So I agree with you. I'm just trying to break down why a disordered person would do it. That's why.
Like personal experience when I was constantly posting about like body positivity in like 2015 or like the fat acceptance stuff in like 2021. Like I was constantly posting about my body, posting different angles, posting my stretch marks, like constantly like ranting and raving about like my appearance and stuff. And that was when I was the most unhappy and uncomfortable with myself. But it felt like I was like posting as some sort of cope and to like try and convince myself that it was beautiful, even though like I did not feel like I was. It kind of reminds me of like when people are like in super shitty like unhappy relationships, like they're constantly like posting about like how amazing their partner is or their boyfriend is, but it's like it just feels like they're overcompensating for something. No tea, no shade. Like this is
Yes, I'm a very body neutral girly pop. Like I really push for that on this channel because at least in terms of the disorder, it's just important. Which again, I'm coming at it from that perspective a lot this year. That's what I talk about mostly in this year, is the disorder. So that's why I'm talking about it a lot in this video. I don't know if you have it or not. I haven't observed enough to say an opinion. But what I will say is I'm a body neutral girly pop because it's important to not fixate on it. It's not normal to obsess over how you look or how fat you are or not. If you're doing that, it's a risk factor. It's a warning sign. It's a red flag that there might be something going on internally, which I bring it up a lot because it can cause people to relapse or gain weight back. So if you have these issues mentally, which again, I don't know if you do, I don't know, I can't say 100,000%, not in every case or whatever for sure. But if these issues are there, it puts you at risk to regain, which is why I talk about it, because we talk a lot about, like on this channel, Aubrey Gordon, for example, and how Aubrey Gordon is obsessed with people. If they lose weight, they automatically will gain it back no matter what. That's not true. That has to do with the disorder. So it's important to bring all that up. Okay.
Is the happiest I've ever been with my body and actually my relationship, but I'm not constantly posting about it. And just to reiterate this one more time in case you also struggle with comprehension skills, I don't hate fat people. I don't think all fat people should be forced to lose weight. I don't care if you are losing weight, if you're gaining weight, if you're maintaining weight. I believe that we all should have the freedom to do whatever the fuck we want. I'm not going to dictate your body if you're not going to dictate mine. I think that people of every shape and size should have basic respect. I don't think that people should be discriminated against because of how they look, but just because you are fat and you're offended about something doesn't mean that you're right, or doesn't mean that someone's fat phobic because they don't agree with you. But I understand it's hard to think critically when you're upset or you're triggered. I think everyone should be able to do whatever they want with their body, but of course, like, our actions have consequences.
Yes.
Like, I have the ability to drive 100 miles per hour in a residential zone, but if I hurt someone and I get pulled over and go to jail, I made my bed and now I have to lie in it. So I've posted on my story a couple times talking about how much weight I've lost and what I've done, so I'm going to film another video talking about that. I am about 50 pounds down since my heaviest of 2022, so I'm going to film that next and post it soon. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe.
Congratulations. Congrats.
If you've made it this far, make sure to leave a gravestone emoji. I love you and you're capable of great and amazing things, and don't let anyone convince you elsewise. And if you're curious, here is the long super response that I posted from S.
Now on, I am just going to treat every fat creator who has freshly turned into a weight loss influencer as if they've died. Yesterday, I had a blog on Mutual who had posted a video that I at first thought was satire. Like, they were talking about their journey from body positivity into fat acceptance as like a delusion that they were holding.
Thank you for being so respectful when talking about my journey. When I talked about my journey in my video, I was very authentic and very vulnerable. But in case you didn't see that video, I will sum it up, maybe even elaborate, because I don't know why she's thinking it was so negative. In my video, I mentioned that I went on my first diet when I was in kindergarten because I was told I was overweight by my doctor. And then flash forward to about 18 years old, I had an outbreak of my autoimmune disorder. It was my first one. And my autoimmune disorder is called HSP vasculitis. Look it up. It's pretty rare. All the blood vessels in the bottom half of my legs, the calves, literally exploded. And I had open wounds all the way down from my knees to my feet. I still have scars on my legs to this day. I couldn't even show pictures of it on TikTok because it honestly looks like something that came out of a horror movie. And when that was happening, the doctors could not figure out what was wrong with me for a very long time, so I was on steroids and opioids until everything calmed down. And during that time, I gained a lot of weight. I had stretch marks. I felt...
Yeah. And that's the thing, too. Like, not everybody gains it from those toxic ritualistic behaviors and stuff. I talk about it a lot on this channel because that is how I gained the weight. You know, and it's also how I ended up becoming hypothyroid, is through abusing my body with that disorder. So that's where I come from. You know, I didn't have those medications and stuff, but that is a way to gain weight. And it can be difficult to lose it. I've talked a lot about it on this channel. Once you are getting to a very big size, it is more difficult to lose at a bigger size. It's a common misconception that it's easier. It's actually less easy. So I think that's totally on point. And I'm sorry that happened.
literally disgusting because my skin was rotting off of me. And during that time, I learned about the body positivity movement. And during that time, I found a lot of comfort and love in the idea of knowing that I have value no matter what I look like, even if I could not love myself in that moment. And I continued being in that body positivity for quite a long time until I found the fat liberation movement, which a lot of us did on TikTok during the lockdown. And again, I found a lot of comfort and safety in that community for years. I never thought it was like some weird psychosis or delusion. It was reality. But as the years went on,
that person's projecting, because for them it is. Like I told you, it's a specific disorder. It literally is a thing. But yes, I totally understand that not everybody in fat acceptance has that. And you've given it a beautiful example, or like a really, really strong example of somebody who doesn't necessarily have that, who gets sucked in. But I just argue that the logic behind it, it is rooted in that disorder. That's what I say.
I started to realize
So that movement tries to teach people that don't have the disorder to have the same similar mindsets. Like, for example, that weight is genetic, that you cannot control the size of your body, for example. A denial of caloric realism is major, and it is delusional. Literally delusional.
I didn't really like this community and how they treated other people. And I don't like how this person is treating me or talking about my story.
It's like a delusion that they were holding, but they do in fact have full control over their body and their fatness, and it's their responsibility to lose weight, and everyone else should lose weight too.
See, the thing is, when you are in the fat acceptance movement, they say things like, your genetic makeup is...
The disorder makes you mean, too. It does, because it makes you crazy. It really does. And again, I don't care if that's controversial to say, but it really makes you crazy. So I will always argue for people to get out of it. If you're in it, you fight it tooth and nail. You don't tolerate it, you get rid of it. And it's hard because a lot of people don't realize they have it, because you can be delusional about it. Like I always explain, from 2009 to 2014, I was severely B followed by the letter E followed by the letter D. Severely so, and I had no idea. No idea. I was delusional about it. And I believed a lot of the same things that fat acceptance does. I just can't do it. I'm just so hungry. I'm just this. I'm addicted to food. Like, I would be so indistinguishable from a lot of fat acceptance people during that time because they probably aren't aware, So I'm going to keep doing my thing here, But yeah, no, I totally know that not everybody has it. And not everybody gets to be that big because of it. And I do agree that those medications can absolutely put you in that situation.
Responsible for why you were fat, or fat people can't control that they are fat, and like diets don't work, and intake outtake isn't real. So when you are involved in these movements, you start to think, I'm so helpless over what I look like in my health. What my body looks like is already determined. And in reality, it's not. My genetics didn't make
It's a toxic ritualistic mindset. It is a mindset within the E followed by the letter D. And they taught it to you. Isn't that horrible? It's so horrible. It's unimaginable. Like for me, almost dying from that type of stuff, it's horrible to see that being spread to people that don't even have it. And then this other person comes on and tries to reinforce it and all this stuff. Like, had you had the disorder, you may have relapsed because of it. It's very dangerous what they do. Thank God you don't. Because it just kind of went through you like, what the fuck, But for people who are like, they're in it, oh gosh, you're right. Like, why am I thinking I can change my body? Why am I thinking that? This is what I am. This is my genetics. Of course it is. Of course. I've already tried to lose the weight so many times. I've already done this diet and this diet and this diet and this diet and this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. And then this happened and that and da-da-da. That kind of like running commentary. Had that person said that to somebody with the disorder, it may have been enough to keep them on that highway to hell. And that's why I fight it. Because it's evil. It's a horrible, horrible thing. But I'm so glad that you don't have it. So I actually believe you don't. And I'm so glad that that went right through. It bounced right off of you, which thank God. But they still got you to believe it for a while. And that's horrible.
Make me fat. Me, during the lockdown, not moving, not going outside, not seeing any friends, eating boxes
And
of pasta
I so appreciate you making this video. I really, really do. This is great.
by myself. Only drinking Diet Dr. Pepper is why I was fat. Never in that video did I say, well, it's my responsibility to lose the fatness. I came to the conclusion that my life is in my control, whether that is my career, my appearance, how much I weigh, my friends, what I'm doing. So guess what? I wanted to work on my health, especially my mental health, because at that time I literally wanted to unalive myself because of all the isolation during the lockdown. My mental health was so bad. So I started seeing a psychiatrist. I got prescribed the right medication. Then I was finally in a good enough mood to start taking my health seriously. So I cut out the Diet Dr. Pepper and I started drinking water. And then slowly I started eating more protein, which these changes literally took years for me to do. During all of those changes, I simultaneously lost weight. I wasn't doing it on purpose until a couple months ago, I decided to take my weight loss a little bit more seriously. In my video, you can go back and watch it, it's still up and still getting tons of hate comments. Nowhere in that fucking video do I say every fat person should take responsibility and lose weight. The whole video was about
It's
me
very,
and my
very neutral, very, very uncontroversial. Absolutely uncontroversial. I agree with her there.
experience. Not one time did I make a generalization about fat people. Not one time did I degrade them or say anything mean or harass anyone. I literally talked about my journey.
It's because you said that you can control your body size. That's what it was. You touched upon something within that person's disordered mindset, and it was a massive trigger, and that's why they lashed out.
Journey. You know, it took a lot of courage to post that video because I knew exactly this would happen. When you talk about leaving communities, instead of being like, okay, bye, it was nice having you, they want to start bullying you. And what does it say about a community that just bullies everyone that leaves? I'm more of a libertarian than any of these fat liberation activists because I don't give a flying fuck about what anyone does with their body as long as they're not harming other people. You could go starve yourself. You could go eat 3 boxes of pizza. I don't care because it's not my life. I want everyone to have the best life that they can.
See, I'm not on that level. I'm like, ugh, like I would say something about it, but I get it. Different perspectives. That's fine. That's fine.
But that's out of my control.
To lose weight, and everyone else.
It is out of my control too, but I will still say something about it. So I'm a little different there, but that's also fine. Everybody's going to have a different view on this type of thing. I'm just glad that you're not involved, and I'm so glad you made that video. So glad. I think it's a great video.
Too. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, she's dead now. I don't care what anyone does with their body. It's when people start dictating to others, especially fat people, what they should be doing with their bodies.
She didn't, though. You're upset that she challenged that, one of the foundational beliefs of your disorder.
That I draw the line.
Again, nowhere in my fucking video did I say every fat person should
I do think that person has it. I will say that. So I will. Either that or they're doing like an Academy Award winning performance, which I guess is possible, but I think they have it.
Everyone should do this. I ended the video with a very inspiring message. And all I said was,
Again, that is my non-professional opinion. Allegedly. That's what I believe. That's my opinion, etc., etc.
and you can do this too. You can do it if you want. I'm not saying you should. I'm not holding this up to your head telling you to do this. Because guess what? We're all adults here, and we can all do whatever we want, which includes me.
It's a reminder again about why, unless it's fat liberation, it doesn't mean shit.
And once again, I will say it. I do not care what you do with your body. I don't